Nearly a decade ago, I walked into a local hi-fi shop with a single DVD audio disc in hand. Armed with a purpose, I wanted to hear what Telarc's 1812 Overture was supposed to sound like with a serious hi-fi system. Every time I had played this recording, the cannon blast sounded more like well farts, and I was determined to wake the beast lurking deep within this fine recording. I asked the sales rep to take me to the best room he had to offer. After a quick glance up and down, taking note of a snot-nosed punk kid with a Pearl Jam t-shirt, he smiled and said, "Okay, kid, follow me." Sitting down in a large room with Bowers & Wilkins 802 staring back at me and the sidewalls lined with Macintosh gear stacked to the ceiling like puzzle pieces, I was handed a remote. "So look, kid, if you're going to do this, do it right." I looked up at him and asked, "What do you mean, do it right?" He grinned and replied with the following 3 words, "Turn it up." This moment would change how I hear hi-fi forever. As the song played and I heard the room energize in a way that reached deep into my soul and shook me to the very core, I knew right then and there, this is what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. That moment the audiophile enthusiast in me was solidified in stone. Yeah, this was it, my time. And for those of you snot-nosed kids out there that wonder what those cannons really sound like, well, let me tell you, it's terrifically terrifying. The bass was rattling my rib cage while beating me down to a happy pulp of audiophile bliss. Yeah, the only thing that I could do was surrender. Well, folks, with a warm welcome back to New Record Day, we won't be reviewing the Bowers & Wilkins 802Ds or Macintosh. No. What we will be taking a look at is a speaker that has managed to perform that same experience all over again. The night I dropped the needle on Dire Straits right across the river, I heard bass that was quick, clean, and powerful. Yeah. What I was hearing was way bigger than anything I ever expected to make its way from an open baffle speaker. Today, folks, we are talking about the mighty Spatial M3s. Standing 42 inches tall and 20 inches wide, the Spatials offer a minimalist look loaded with 2 15-inch drivers combined with a wideband compression driver utilized for everything 800 Hz and above. Even with a banged-up demo model, I was impressed with the paint job and loved the tucked-away speaker plate hiding the internal crossover. Speaking of crossovers, analog purists can rejoice knowing you don't need to mess with anything digital in the M3s. Yeah, Clayton isn't afraid to do things the right way as opposed to the easy way, and for that, New Record Day thanks you. The speakers weigh in a hefty 65 pounds and are made in the USA. Everything about the speaker's build quality is top-notch and earns every positive remark I can toss at Team Spatial. If you take a look at the site, the only notable changes you see in this review sample compared to the current production are the pedestal feet and 3 inches sliced off the sides, making the newer models look a little bit cleaner across the board. I asked Clayton and he explained that they are all cosmetic changes, so nothing to worry about here, folks. The version I'm covering today is the base model priced at $15.95 for the pair, but for those that want to kick things up, they also offer a turbo version with WBT terminals and upgraded capacitors for $19.95. Not enough to keep you satisfied? Priced at $25.95, they also offer a Turbo S version that arms these guys with a new M25 compression driver incorporating a diaphragm treated with titanium nitride. Looking for similar performance of beryllium without the skyrocket price? This is the route you would want to go. Rounding things out nicely, the M3s come in your choice of black, white, or red. Bottom line, the M3s definitely speak to value-conscious audiophiles, and with a wide range of models leading all the way up to the Lumina line, Spatial Audio has all their bases covered regardless of your budget. For those new to open baffle territory, the M3s have no enclosure. That's right, You heard me. Zilch. Nada. Nothing. Why, you ask? Well, that's a great question. There are a number of interesting things that happen when experiencing open baffle speakers, and the Spatials are certainly no different. First, in a traditional box, you have direct sound hitting you from the front of the speaker. While this approach certainly works, the real problem child is what's stuffed inside of the box. All that energy bouncing around is doing its very best to escape. Every cabinet designer in the world has to address this with bracing, dampening materials, or working within the limitations imposed by a port. With open baffle speakers, the back waves are completely free. No pressure buildup, which makes dreadful one-note bass a thing of the past and something for cabinet designers to fuss over. With the M3, all frequencies 800 Hz down are 100% open. This gives fast, tuneful, natural-sounding bass that not only sounds great in average listening rooms, but also works in much smaller rooms, but more on that later. Above 800, the compression driver is closed in the back and handles spatial cues, detail retrieval, and localization of instruments in the mid-band all the way up to treble town. Essentially, the M3 is giving you the best of both worlds. Unleashed bass energy with focused mid-range and treble. As you might imagine, this is going to provide a different flavor of sound from what you might be accustomed to with traditional boxes. To help paint a picture, open baffle speakers will provide a similar stage familiar to those who use magneplanar or electrostatic speakers, but the similarity ends here. The Spatial's advantage over the recently reviewed Maggie Point 7s is the Spatial's ability to provide powerful bass dynamics and a ballsy, authoritative top-end extension. Not to mention, you don't need to borrow power from the sun to wake up the M3s. Heck, even double-digit watts will definitely do the trick. Bottom line, if you scan the landscape of your music collection and find a portion of the space is taken up by good old rock and roll, well, bless you, and you will definitely be interested where the rest of this review leads. The Spatials need ample room to do what they do best, and for this reason alone, the spouse approval factor could be a challenge. Clayton suggests pulling these into the room with a starting point of 18 to 36 inches from the front wall. In my room, I found they sound fantastic starting around 30 inches, and I loved the wide open stage they brought to the party when yanked 40 inches into the room. Every room is different, and the good news regarding the Spatials is that though they do need room to breathe, they are quite easy to move back out of the way if compromises need to be made with your loved ones. As you move closer to the sidewalls, you will notice a bump in the mids and mid-bass, so tailoring these is quite fun, and you will know the moment you have them dialed in, because you will create a train track of left to right staging running right through your listening room. Toe in is up to you, and I keep going back and forth with the Spatials, which tells me there is no right or wrong, so try experimenting in your room and trust your ears. One advantage to toeing in is you do gain a little more depth to the stage, which could be the only real hiccup I encountered with these guys. The M3s throw a massive image from left to right, but not as deep as some other speakers that I have heard. One of the things I appreciate about the M3s is their chameleon-like ability to adapt to gear upstream. I first caught on to this when I knocked out the review for the wonderful Amps and Sound Stereo 15. That baby wrapped its warm hands around the Spatial's compression driver and threw a stage cozy enough to listen to for days without fatigue. As soon as I discovered how versatile the Spatials are with different gear, I made the decision to approach this review a little differently and see where we land when trying out a number of combos with the M3s. I also wanted to explore some cable upgrade options and reached out to Paul over at Anti-Cables. Happy to join the party, he sent over his level 2 speaker wires, some of their 2.2 performance interconnects, and we even gave a second go around with his level 3 power cords. So folks, we have a ton to cover today, and without wasting another moment, Clayton Shaw, you're up to bat. Let's dance. First up, and keeping things simple, PS Audio sent over their Sprout to check out. Don't let this little guy fool you. It's loaded with more features than a B-1 bomber and dishes out 50 watts into the 4-ohm load of the Spatials. Combined with a built-in moving magnet phono section, built-in DAC handling 24 192 files, ability to stream Bluetooth, and a robust headphone section to boot, the Sprout comes loaded to play with the big boys without the big boy price tag. Even as a complete package, the entire system is going to stay well below $3K, including the upgraded cables, and let me tell you, it sounds great. Trying out some high-resolution digital recordings from our friends over at HD Tracks, I was able to check out Mark Knopfler's Tracker and Billy Gibbons' Perfectamundo. Gutsy, punchy, and exercising all the positive attributes of the Spatials, this combo will lead newcomers to hi-fi and budget-conscious buyers down the right path. Across the entire audio spectrum, I found the Sprout to sound pretty neutral throughout the mid-range and treble town, and it provided a punchy, elevated bass. Making my way through the rest of Tracker, the Spatials provided a nice presentation of acoustic arrangements. The top end remained as focused as my reference Gallo 3.1s, but arrived with more aggression and forward bite. Also, with the Sprout at the helm, I certainly had enough cojones to keep up with the busier tracks. Importantly, I rarely heard anything I would consider smeared or smudgy, and the top end, while forward, never sounded fatiguing even after hours of listening. Changing pace and trying Billy's Perfectamundo, which is drenched in fantastic percussion sections and fat-sounding drums, the Spatials remain the star of the show and pave the way of dynamic fireworks that many speakers cannot possibly compete with. As nice as this budget system sounded, I decided to try some A/B testing between the Level 3 from Anti-Cables and some stock power chords to see if I could hear any differences. The opening track, Got Love If You Want It, offers rhythm galore, and the M3s grabbed every single shake, slap, and thump by the scruff of the neck and kept everything in perfect time. With the Level 3 power chord, I noticed the bottom of the barrel octaves seemed to hit a bit harder, and everything sounded a little bit more controlled. Bottom line, this combo would be a fantastic option for anyone who wants to see what all the fuss is about when it comes to jumping into hi-fi. Swapping out for the Rogue Audio Sphinx 2 and playing the same tracks, everything in Treble Town was elevated a notch and the bass sounded a bit more linear. Throwing the Anti-Cables into the mix, I pressed play and got the party started. With the Hypex modules tucked into the heart of the Sphinx and tubes leading the charge, I ended up with a holographic mid-range and enough detail to bring excitement to any party. Rated at 100 watts, this is going to be a combo that will easily bring triple-digit decibels without throwing your headroom out the window. Trying out the Level 3 power chord, I played everything all over again with the stock chord and instantly noticed one specific thing that stood out. With the Level 3, I was able to detect dynamics rendered with more clarity and precision. Bottom line, I think this is another value-based option for those who want to get the ball rolling with hi-fi. My one and only reservation for those moving into Rogue territory is to know you will have a lot, and I mean a lot of detail to work with combined with that compression driver. So keep this in mind as you consider your music source. Throwing the giant-sized Spatials in a small 10 by 11 room might look completely insane, but before you smash that unsubscribe button, hear me out. The bass on the M3s will not overpower a small room and will instead leave you hanging with LL Cool J. In fact, the bass is tight, it's punchy, it's well defined and makes me feel confident in saying these speakers absolutely work darn well in small places. Did I just articulate all the big advantages to dipole speakers? You better believe it. Leading the charge in this session, the $3,500 Yamaha AS2100 is a beast of an integrated that paired with the Spatial M3s like peanut butter goes with jelly. Yamaha strips all the goodies you might find tucked away into something like the Sprout and focus only on sound, which is exactly what you get. No fancy schmancy streaming, no built-in DAC, no Bluetooth thingamajigs, no, just sound. This beautifully designed amp provided serious dynamic slam, and when paired with the M3s, you better be ready for some fireworks. Without taking anything away from the value options, the Yamaha is a solid choice for those of you who want to know where the road leads when you venture away from the kiddie pool and dive into the deeper end with the big kids. Again, using the upgraded anti-cables and trying out the same songs on Tracker, using an AudioQuest Dragonfly as a DAC, the Yamaha brought a mature presentation that sank its teeth into the mix by throwing punches that hit harder with greater clarity. Even in this closet of a room, the M3s combined with the Yamaha still threw a wide stage and checked off every audiophile requirement that I'm searching for when judging a speaker. Throughout the busier tracks on Perfectamundo, the M3s handled the tracks with control and grip. I could easily trace bass notes without hearing any boomy resonance. Yanking out the level 3 power cord, it was harder to hear the difference in this rig, but to be fair, I didn't crank it up in here like I did with the bigger room, so dynamics didn't show up like they did in the other systems covered thus far. Bottom line here, folks, don't think for 1 second that having a smaller room excludes you from the fun to be had with the Spatial M3s, so feel free to hit the checkout button. Over the last couple reviews I've knocked out, I have been digging the heck out of the Vision preamp sent over by Audio by Van Alstyne, combined with the S500 from Red Dragon Audio. I also threw the entire anti-cable loom into the mix and got as close to what I would consider a full-blown hi-fi system that still offers serious value and doesn't cut any critical corners. I typically see Clayton pair the Dragon and anti-cables with the Spatials at the shows, and when I heard their room in Newport, I had a feeling this was going to be the combo to beat. Using the latest Pascal modules combined with Red Dragon's own proprietary input buffer, this bad mother flower dishes out a fire-breathing 250 watts into 8 ohms and 500 bone-crushing Katie bar the door and run for the hills watts into 4 ohms. Proudly built in the USA and a 5-year warranty in the $2K price range? Yeah. Red Dragon's S500 is sitting right in the middle of the pack of what serious audiophiles would be considering when they want to jump into the deeper end of the swimming pool. With the entire cable loom covering the whole rig, the anti-cables are no nonsense, outside-of-the-box way of thinking. Paul has a good thing going with his anti-cables, and what impressed me the most is we didn't even climb all the way up his lineup to make all 3 systems sing to their full potential. Priced conservatively across the board, I can say with a straight face that his cables offer true value. In one word, I think anti-cables offer clarity. I heard it in my very first New Record Day review, and I heard it all over again more than a year later. With the big rig rocking, everything I loved about the Sprout and Sphinx combos were bested in every possible category. All the nuts and bolts of the soundstage were tightened up. Dynamics dropped bigger bombs, detail was even-handed and provided just enough sparkle to keep things interesting without sounding thin or sterile. Texture and tone of cymbal hits were ballsy and robust and smashed their way through the mix the way they are supposed to. Electric guitars popped with bite, body, and fine-line details led to goosebumps and grins. Call it system synergy, call it what you want. Bottom line, this is the combo where the magic show turns to reality. Dropping the needle on dire straits right across the river, I was teleported back to my moment, my time. The moment when everything changed and how I hear hi-fi would never be the same. As the song played, I heard the room energize in a way that reached deep into my soul and shook me to the very core. I knew, right then and there, moments like this can be repeated, and hi-fi is something I will enjoy for the rest of my life. Yeah, this is it. Our time. Our time to connect with music. And for those of you snot-nosed kids out there wearing Pearl Jam t-shirts that wonder, Ron, what does that really sound like? Well, let me tell you, kid, it's terrifically terrifying. The bass is rattling my ribcage while beating me down to a happy pulp of audiophile bliss. Yeah, the only thing we can do, kid, is surrender. Surrender to the mighty M3s.